I feel like I'm so out of shape for podcasting. Like just sitting down and watching the TV show,
Yeah.
I was like, this is hard.
Yeah. I was too. I was taking notes. I'm like, how did I used to do this? Like, what was my
Yeah.
system?
I did the same. I kept trying to go back. I was like, what did I write down? What
Yeah.
was I thinking about? But I was like,
Okay, let me do the intro real quick.
okay.
I remember what it even said.
Welcome to Act 4 of La Boheme.
Right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Salt and Burn This, Season 2. My name is Sammy.
I'm Valerie.
And oh my God, it's been a few weeks. And
my
I don't remember what I'm doing anymore. So
I was like, aren't you supposed to say something else there, Sammy?
I don't know. Okay. I have a crazy story to tell you that I have been saving for this. Like
Have I been like making you put things off? I'm so sorry.
No, this is just like I've been telling like a bunch of people this story. It's like I can't tell Valerie yet because I need to get like a live reaction.
Oh my gosh. Okay, here we go.
Okay, so a couple weeks ago I had a friend of mine in town like visiting.
Yep.
She lives in Texas now, but I met her in Oklahoma a long time ago. We used to work at Starbucks together. Hi, Sarah. So this is like day 3 or 4 while she was there because she was staying with me. And I had been working all day in the office and she had been walking around all day, doing things.
New York things.
Yes.
Yep.
So then we met up after work. Neither of us were really hungry yet, so we kept walking around, took her to Bryant Park.
Nice.
Just to show her one of my favorite parks in the city and the library. And you could see the Empire State Building, all that stuff.
Yeah, it's a beautiful area.
Yes. So we sat, relaxed because it was a hot day that day, and about to rain. You could kind of feel it and see it in the sky.
Yeah.
So finally, after a while, we're like, okay, I think we're ready to eat. There's a restaurant that's like a 10 or 15-minute walk away that I've been wanting to try. Let's go check it out. And we were like less than a block away because it was on 39th and 9th and we were on 38th and 9th or something like that. We go to cross the street and I step on something. I feel it move. I hear a squeaky squeak and I feel a little pinch and I screamed like a little girl. I was like, what?
Did you step on a rat?
I stepped on a fucking rat.
Your New York experience is complete.
And he bit me.
Oh my God.
Yes.
That is a New York City rat with an attitude. Are you okay?
I'm fine.
You didn't have to get like a rabies shot or anything?
No, I did go to the urgent care because, I called Michael and I was just like, oh my God, you are never going to believe what just happened to me. And he was just like, oh my God, go to urgent care right now. They've got carried diseases, it's just like terrified. And so, dinner plans were scrapped and went off to an urgent care. It was closed. The closest one that was still open was like on 57th Street. So went there, waited a while, got a tetanus shot and some antibiotics just in case. But the doctor did say that rats generally don't carry rabies. So, small mammals, they're not really rabies carriers, thankfully. But I was just like, oh man.
Were you wearing flip-flops?
Yeah, I was wearing some sort of sandals.
Oh my God, Sammy. That there was a rat who was just sitting there and you stepped on him.
I know.
And B, he's like, bitch, and bites you.
I know. I fucked that rat's day up. And then he in turn fucked my night up. Oh,
so the next YouTube video we're going to see is not the pizza rat or the chain smoking cigarette rat. It's going to be like the toe biting rat.
Right.
Oh my God. I'm glad you're okay. And
I'm totally fine. It didn't
that's
really hurt. It was just like a pinch, you know? It was just like he did something, and I looked down and my little toe was bleeding. And
Did-
Sarah was just like, oh, first she was just cracking up at me, you
like,
know, she's like,
what
oh
just
my God,
happened?
ha 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 ha. Because I'm sure my reaction to stepping on the rat was just like,
The big girly girl that you are. That
no. Because I'm not really afraid of like rodents or anything. I don't mind them. But, you know, unexpectedly stepping on one, that's a whole nother matter, you know.
Oh my gosh.
Needless
Oh
to
my.
say, we did not get to go to that restaurant that night because it was
That
already
was going to be
late.
my next question
So
is
we
did you
ordered
get
a
to
pizza. We ordered a pizza in tribute to the rat.
nice. Well, you know, nothing beats a New York pizza. So
So,
that's amazing. Well, that's right up there with you know, I broke 2 toes by tripping
oh
over my
yeah.
score.
Oh my God, our poor feet.
I know, right? You're like, how's it going? I'm like, well, let me tell you. I tripped over my score. I never leave my score on the floor because of that reason. And I left my score on the floor and I kicked it and I broke, snap, 2 toes right there.
Oh God. For non-theater people, score is basically the script, if you will, of an opera, but your score is always like 3 times larger
Absolutely
in
super meaty.
thickness than everybody
Yes.
else's because you add in all these things and
All the notes, all the paperwork
Yeah.
that all the crews need. Yeah.
it's like what, a 4-inch binder that's
Yeah,
completely full.
Yep. Between 3 and 4 inches. Yep. 3 is what we try to keep it to. If it starts getting bigger than that, you're like, no,
Yeah.
it's too big. But yeah, and they don't move, by the way, when you kick them. They don't move. Immovable. In fact, when I told the conductor, because he asked me why I was limping, and I
Yeah.
said I kicked the score, and he said, on purpose? And I said, no. And he said, because I did.
Season 2, episode 1, In My Time of Dying. Dean, you gotta hold on. After the crash, Dean's spirit wanders the hospital corridors as his comatose body hovers at the brink of death, and a reaper tries to lure him into eternity. Written by Eric Kripke and directed by Kim Manners.
I just want to point out that I love Kim Manners' directing of this episode because he directed the previous one, the season conclusion of season 1, and he directed this one. And I feel like there was a leap that he made that it just transitioned like Supernatural into the next level of like filmmaking, storytelling and filmmaking. And so yay, Kim Manners. I loved it.
Yes. Oh, also, so this one had a commentary to it. Yay. It's been so long since I've gotten to listen to a commentary.
I can't wait to hear about your commentary.
Oh my God. So this one had Jensen, Jared, Kim, and Cyrus, who was some sort of producer.
And it wasn't just like Jensen and Jared like slapping each other around.
No, there was very little of it. There was actually, I think, having the two
grown-ups
grown-ups
in the room
kind of reined them in. I mean, there was definitely some jabby jabs, but you could also kind of tell that they were more comfortable because the first time they did it, it was the 4th episode of season 1. So they were still,
and they're like, we don't know if this is going to get picked up for another year.
Exactly. Yeah. So they were more serious about it. They were more comfortable talking about arcs and camera shots and things like that. So it was enjoyable to listen to.
I thought that the acting in this episode was also a step up from what they've done. And I was so impressed with Jensen Ackles. Just his micro expressions, it really told a story in those moments. And I was like, this is really not just a Monster of the Week show anymore. You know, this is really grabbing you in the depth of character involvement.
Okay, so we open up with the same scene as the ending of season 1 because that was major cliffhanger. Car getting completely totaled
by a semi truck.
Yes, with the boys and dad inside of it, and some guy with demon eyes inside of the truck.
Right. I love that they had Bad Moon Rising playing by CCR.
That was the song that was playing. because now, oh yes,
Now
season 2 now, it's officially playing the real music. So
yes.
so sadly, I don't have any more like, haha, in the DVD, the song is this.
But I can't complain about that now.
That's
so
true. That's true.
So wow, thanks a lot, Netflix. Now I have nothing to complain about when it comes to audio. But yeah, Bad Moon Rising. I grew up listening to CCR, so I was thrilled. I was thrilled to have that, and it's the perfect song for that.
Yeah.
And of course, the title of the show, "In My Time of Dying," is a Led Zeppelin song. It's like a 12-minute long death and
Led
dying
songs
ballad. I know with this one, I was just like, oh my god!
Yeah.
But it's perfect. It's perfect for the emotional arc that happens in this episode. So
yeah.
And plus, it's Led Zeppelin, which Dean loves. So
and they've moved away from the one word, a very obvious titles. Now there's a little bit more creativity to it, which is nice.
Yes. So it picks up with where the car crash ended. With you see the boys. Everyone is either dead or unconscious in the car. You don't know what.
Yeah.
The demon truck driver gets out of his truck, walks over to the Impala, and tears the door off. And that's when we see that Sam is actually alive. He's got the Colt that he's cocked and now aiming at the demon. And I guess the truck driver is like, he tries to play it like, oh, you're not going to waste a bullet on me because, you're saving it for somebody else. And Sam's like, try me. And there's something about the way Dean says it that the demon's like, he's not messing around.
Yeah.
And demon blows out of the truck driver's body, that big demon black smoke thing.
Yes.
And blows out. What's really cool though is that it doesn't just like vaporize, it like hangs over the car for a minute. Like I'm still gonna be around, and then it kind of disappears. So now we've got solid demon smoke. Like this is now the thing. Demon possession.
Demon smoke, I would say.
Yeah.
Besides, like later on, they refine it a little bit just with CGI, but no, this is what the demon form is now from forever.
From here on it,
Yes. So it was either Kim or Cyrus. I was having a hard time telling which one was which in the commentary, but they were like, this guy is not the same guy as the end of season 1. It's a different truck driver. Yeah. Oh, and you would only notice that if you went from like immediately from the end to this one. Yes.
We didn't, because we took a hiatus. And so I was like, could have been.
Yeah, I totally didn't tell until he said something. And Sam was also, Jared was also like, it is really hard to cock the hammer of that gun with one hand. Yeah. Because he was like, this is not like a mass produced kind of gun or anything.
This is a Colt revolver where you have to.
It's like, especially since he was like acting half unconscious in the car, he had this prosthetic over his eye that kept like,
oh, that's right. It looked like he got
leaking into his
in the
eye.
face.
Yeah. So he's just like, this is
so really hard. Oh my gosh. But the cool thing about that moment is it's a little reversal of the brothers. Like now Dean's in trouble and Sam is stepping up to be the hero. Like he's going to save his family no matter what.
Yeah.
Because Dean can't. I mean, he's unconscious or dead in the back of the car.
Right. Yeah, Sam's the only one that's awake. And also the truck driver, now that the demon is gone, he's come to. And
that like, poor guy.
I know. Could you imagine?
He's like, did I do this?
Yeah.
Yeah, he is.
Like,
I mean, he's devastated. Yeah, he's devastated by this. And so clearly not an evil guy. He was possessed by a demon.
Yes.
To do this.
The next scene is, after like Sam is yelling Dean's name, trying to wake him up. He's not waking up. Yes. The next scene is daylight. So they've been sitting there all night waiting for a chopper to come pick them up. They get strapped into the where are they? Gurneys?
Gurneys, yeah.
Yeah.
Clearly, I mean, the EMTs have been there because like Dean's got bandages on now. They've got their neck collars on, but Dean's still not responding. Dad's still not responding. And Sam's like, just tell me, are they alive?
Yeah.
And no one says anything.
Next scene we see is you're inside of a hospital room. Dean is like coming to, he sits up, rubs his eyes. He's like coming out of it, gets up, no one's around. He's calling for not help, but like attention.
He's like, hello.
Hey,
where's everybody? And he's like he's got like a t-shirt, just a white t-shirt. He's got like hospital scrubs on. He's barefoot and he's just like walking the hallways looking for someone.
Yeah. Comes up to a front desk with a cute nurse and, she's like, oh, hey, I was in a car wreck. I came here with my brother and my dad. I just want to know if they're okay. She's not responding.
Yeah, doesn't even notice him.
Doesn't respond. And this was where I was like, oh, well, here's the pros of being a ghost hunter is that you kind of figure out pretty quickly. Oh,
yep. But that's what I mean by like his micro expressions is that in that moment where he went snap, snap, and she didn't respond, he was like, he knew something was wrong. Because then he like turns around and runs back to his room.
Yeah.
Right. And of course, sees himself laying in bed, hooked up to machines. He's got a ventilator. He's got tubes up his nose.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is that he doesn't look like, oh no, or shocked. He's just like, I was right.
Fuck.
Fuck, yeah.
Originally, they shot this with him like opening up doors and like looking for people. And then once they gave the proofs or whatever to Kripke. Kripke called them and he's like, ghosts can't open doors. So then they had to redo it.
Can you imagine having shot that entire scene and then have someone be like, wait.
Yeah. And they were just like, but you never know because he's not really a ghost and there's different rules for different ghosts.
Yeah. But, no, because then that takes away from a following scene when he's able to Swayze something.
Oh, yeah, Swayze something.
I remember, again, I hate to say this, but I was watching Stargate and they always talk about like out of phase or in phase. If you're out of phase, you're stuck in between realities and stuff.
Oh, okay.
And they always say, well, if you're out of phase, how come you don't like fall through the floor then? How are you still able to walk on the same floor as everybody? How come you still have to go, and it's like those traps of, the sci-fi and the supernatural is like, oh, well, let's write a reason.
Yeah, I feel like I've thought that before too. It's just like, well, if they can't touch anything, then how are they still like standing?
Right, standing on the floor. You're right.
And they're not like falling in through the core of the earth.
Right, exactly.
They're into space. How does gravity still affect the ghost?
We are just too smart for television.
Yep. Now are the title screen.
Now the title screen. Now this is new. This is a new one. It's not the staticky, shocky, glitchy, supernatural anymore. This time it's flames. Yeah. It's red and it's flames. And I didn't know I didn't notice this before, but right before it still does the zoom at you, like when the letters finally fully form and it zooms at you. And right before that, the A in supernatural is the anti-possession A. That's the anti-possession star.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't have the flames around it, but it's the exact same star that's the anti-possession.
That's a pentagon. Yeah, that's kind of
the pentagram. Pentagon.
Pentagram.
It's the military building in DC.
Right. Been watching too much news.
But yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, how did I never notice that before? So I went back to the previous season. I'm like, because they never did that before. This is the first time they did it. So after that title scene, the next thing we see is Sam is in Dean's hospital room and just looking down at him, and Dean is talking to him, trying to get him to hear him. Yeah. He's not being desperate about it. He's just like, so you're not going to believe what just happened. He almost forgot because now that he sees Sam, he's like, oh my God, Sam, you look good. I'm glad you're okay. How's Dad? And then he catches himself. He's like, oh. But I thought that was great. It says something about about Dean, that he's in this state of, he knows he can't be seen. There's something wrong, but yet he's still asking about Dad.
Yeah. I thought that all of these scenes, where Ghost Dean is in the same room as Coma Dean, that it was like one of those dual shots that they had to morph together. But no, there were some times where there was a body double there.
A body double.
a face mold, like a mask of him on there.
I read that. I was like, that's not true. But oh my God, it was true.
It is true.
Yeah.
And Jensen was just like, that was one of the weirdest things I've ever had to do.
Is to look at me in bed.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So that's really cool. There were scenes where I was like, I'd lean in. I was like, is that him? How did they, but now that you've said that, I'm like, oh, it was true.
Yeah. Yep.
Very, very cool. But they did a lot of really other cool camera tricks too, where
I thought
he
so
would
too.
be in the scene, in the shot, and then the camera would just pan around and then he's not there, or vice versa. He wasn't there and the camera around. So it's like that. They call that like the cowboy. Was that the cowboy switch? Where
I don't know. They didn't give it a name, but they did talk about it later.
So while Dean is in his room listening to Sam talk to his body, I call him Debbie Downer Doctor comes in with like the prognosis of Dean.
Yeah.
And I was like, Jesus, he's, if he wakes up, he'll still have a hard road, but no one's ever survived this before. And I was like, wah, wah, Debbie Downer Doctor.
I know. No bedside manner whatsoever. No. He's just like, sorry, your brother's probably going to die.
Yeah. Well, we're not going to really need nothing for us to do except wait for him to die.
Yeah.
And Dean in the background, I love that. He's like, Sammy, you got to go. He's like, you got to go find some hoodoo priest and lay some mojo on me. I'll be fine. So Sam's like, Dean is all ready to be like, go back into black magic, summon a reaper type of thing, I'll be okay. Yeah. Just, you got to get me living again.
Okay. So next scene is Sam is in Dad's room. Dad is awake. His arm is in a sling. He's handing over an insurance card with the name of Elroy McGillicuddy, which I did not look up. I meant to, and I forgot to. I don't know the Elroy, but McGillicuddy is from I Love Lucy. That is Lucy Ball's maiden name before she married Ricky Ricardo. She was Lucy McGillicuddy. Oh, okay.
That's all that is a shout out to I Love Lucy.
Or it's just a funny name that they threw in there too.
On a side note, my sister used to call her dog McGillicuddy, even though his name was not McGillicuddy.
So Sam is giving Dad the unfortunate news about Dean. Dad is kind of taking it like, oh, that really sucks. And then Sam turns around and says the exact same thing that Dean says, which is,
I'll go find some hoodoo priest and lay some mojo on him. Yes. He doesn't even realize that.
I know. I think it's so cute that they're so in sync that they said the exact same thing.
He must have heard him subconsciously.
Yeah. There's a little.
But I love that moment. I was like, hey.
Yeah. And Dad is kind of like a little bit negative Nancy about it. He's just like, don't put all your eggs in one basket, so to speak. We may not find somebody. And Sam says, but I did like, before. Once I found a faith healer, granted, that's a whole other discussion. Whether that was,
but John is still like, oh, don't just because that happened doesn't mean that it'll ever happen again.
Right.
And they're off to fighting again.
Yeah. Yeah. Like right from the get-go and the rest of the episode, they're fighting.
And John is still worried about the stupid gun, about the Colt. He's like, where's the Colt? Mm-hmm. Like Dean is already, all right, look, Dean's going to die. Where's the Colt?
Yeah. That's Sam's perception of it. It's just like, really? You're worried about the Colt right now?
Yeah.
While your son is in a hospital bed in a coma. And he's just like, listen, the demon is still after us, whether we're in the hospital or not.
Right.
And that gun is our only shot, pun not intended.
Unintended. Yeah.
Sam says it's in the trunk. Bobby's on his way to get it from this impound lot, so it's not in strangers' hands.
When they mentions like Bobby's an hour out, he's going to tow it back to his place. So they're somewhere near South Dakota. But that was one of my questions is we didn't map quest this because there's been no Chiron that says where they are.
No, and I didn't check like where they were at the end. Weren't they leaving Lincoln? They were leaving Lincoln, right?
Yeah, I think they were leaving Lincoln because they left the cabin.
Right. And so they're just like rushing to a hospital from there. So I assume they're somewhere in Nebraska, which is close to South Dakota.
South Dakota, yeah.
Right. So I assume they're near Lincoln. They're somewhere in Nebraska is my assumption. And Bobby is an hour out from whatever impound lot they took the car to
Yeah.
in Nebraska. So
Yep. Sam's like, don't worry, Dad, don't worry about it. The gun is safe. It'll be fine. Let's go
fine.
help
Yeah.
Dean. Yeah.
Yeah. Dad gives Sam a list of things to give to Bobby to get for him. And it's all these like, strange
Ingredients.
witch's brew ingredients,
Yeah. He's like Acacia, which by the way is my niece's name.
Yes.
And apparently something that's used in demon spells. So
Right. Before Sam completely leaves, though, he says, when the demon, when he was in you, said something about he had plans for me and the children like me. Do you have any idea what he meant by that?
mm-hmm.
And Dad is like, no, I'm really sorry, I don't. Sam leaves, and you see the camera pan over to the corner where Ghost Dean has been hiding
the entire time. Yeah. I don't know about hiding. He's a ghost.
Right. I guess he can't really hide, but he's just there.
Yeah, we didn't know he was there, and they didn't know he was there, and
right.
he was there listening the entire time.
Yes, and he sees Dad's face looking very concerned and like he was a liar, and he calls him out on it, although Dad can't hear it.
Yep, John's definitely hiding something.
Yes.
Next person we see is Bobby. Bobby's back. Yes. Yeah. Very excited. So Bobby and Sam are standing next to the crushed Impala.
Yeah.
And Bobby's just like, nah, there's no saving this,
Yeah.
And Sam first thing he says is, "Oh man, Dean's gonna be pissed."
Yes.
And I was like, that was straight out of Ghostbusters with
was it?
Rick Moranis. Yeah, when they after everything's been destroyed and they've saved the world, Rick Moranis is like pulled out of the burnt dog.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Oh man, the superintendent's gonna be pissed."
Oh.
Right out of Ghostbusters. Or I should say, it reminded me of Ghostbusters, whether they intentionally did it or not.
They just said, Dean loves his car so much, that it's like, right. It's just a natural thing to say.
So I will say, it reminded me of Ghostbusters. Okay. There you go. Okay. But wow, the Impala is just...
Oh my God. Wrecked.
Crushed, torn, twisted, mangled is the word I wrote down.
Yeah. I made a note when Sam's kind of going through the things and he pulls out his laptop, which is destroyed,
and I was destroyed.
I was like, oh no, even the laptop is just like busted. And they talk about it on the commentary because the props guy was like, how am I going to wreck this? Like, what should I do? And they ended up just throwing it off the building of the studio, like the roof of the building.
Oh my God. Well done, because it almost looked like an accordion of a computer.
Yeah.
Wow.
But Bobby's just like, just sell this for scrap metal, man. This is not a good thing. And Sam's like, absolutely not, because when Dean wakes up, he is going to want to, make this decision basically. And I think Bobby was kind of like, okay, I see that the car is not really the important thing here. It's keeping the faith,
getting rid of getting rid of the car is getting rid of Dean, giving up on the car is giving up on Dean.
Yes. Yeah.
I was like, Dean equals Impala.
Yeah. So I just thought that was a nice touch of Bobby to just be like, okay, fine, I'll take the car.
Yeah. And he backed up. He backed off immediately.
Yeah.
But then Sam is like, oh yeah, Dad gave me this list of things for you to get for him.
Mm-hmm.
And Bobby looks at it and he's like, what does he need this
Why? What's going on? And then we cut to we don't, obviously Bobby is going to tell Sam what these ingredients actually do, but then we cut to Dad is in Dean's hospital room looking at Coma Dean in the bed.
Mm-hmm.
Ghost Dean is behind him, just laying into him. It is heartbreaking. Like
he's crying.
Yeah.
He's like, what? You haven't called anybody? You're not doing anything? You're not looking for me? You're not trying to help me?
Yeah.
What kind of dad are you that you're not doing anything?
Yeah. And it's especially heartbreaking when you know what happens later. It's just like, oh my God.
Yeah. Well, it's also just crushing because, Dean has that, worship relationship with John. He worships him. And the fact that he's being completely let down
Yeah.
Everything that he learned about being a person, he learned from John, and John isn't doing anything.
Yeah.
And he's like, what kind of father are you? I worshipped you, and you're not even making a phone call for me to find a new doctor, to find a witch doctor, to find
any information at all. Yeah. It's crushing.
Yeah.
And then he gets distracted because there's a little ghosty thing that just like whoosh by the door.
Whoosh.
So then he goes and chases it down the hall. This ghosty thing, and it is like it's an apparition almost. It's not like a ghost we've seen before, at least portrayed in the show. It's like
it's not flickering or anything like that. It's not glitching.
No, it's like a see-through thing.
White.
Kind of looks like those things from Indiana Jones at the end of Raiders of Lost Ark.
Yes, when they're coming out of the Ark. Yes.
It looks like one of those things. It goes into a room, and Dean follows it, and then he sees like this nurse having hyperventilating, having a heart attack.
She's like on the floor, and she's choking or having an asthma attack or something, because she's like, I can't breathe.
He yells for help, but no one hears him.
Nobody hears him.
He goes to her, can't do anything because he's a ghost, and she just kind of dies. We never see this nurse again. Like they don't mention her at all in the show. They're just like, oh, no. Dead nurse. Okay.
Dead nurse. Yep. Back walking down the hall because distracted by something else. Yes, exactly. So while that's happening, Sam is back. Right. And he and John are fighting again.
Yes, because Bobby has told him what these ingredients actually do. Right. And Ghosteen is in the room. He's trying to somehow tell them there's something here. We gotta go hunt it. And Sam's just like, you're gonna summon this demon? You're still after this? Are you kidding me? Your son is dying and you're still just fixated on this
revenge. That's all you want is revenge. Yep.
Yeah. They're fighting. Dean is yelling at them as a ghost. And I was just like, this must have been really hard to film, with basically kind of 3 conversations going on at once, because Jared and Jeffrey as actors have to pretend like they don't hear Jensen.
Right. And he's in there yelling. He's yelling.
Yes. So that must have been really hard. Jensen even said something like this was it was a little hard to do, being in a room that someone isn't reacting to you, in the way that they should be, because that is a big part of acting, is the reaction.
Right.
And I also just want to say that Jared and Jensen just love Jeffrey. They love every scene that they have to do with him, and they just fawn over him, and they're like, he really brings out the better acting in me. Whoever was talking about him at the time, it's just like, I love these scenes when it's the 3 of us, because it elevates us.
Yeah.
So to your point of there being better acting in this episode, I think it's because it was the 3 of them, kind of melding together.
There's an outtake from season 1, and I think it's the scene where the boys had just got to the PO box and gotten a letter that was addressed to John. And just before they go to open it, John shows up outside the car window. Yeah. The outtake is he went to bend down and say something, but he messed up his lines. And Jeffrey Dean Morgan is like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, you guys. It's like, I have to do better, And I mean, it's not a funny outtake. It's just, performers being like, I did not give you what you needed. That was bad acting on my part. I need to do this better for you, you know? And it's like, I love moments like that.
I do too. So anyway, we're getting so distracted here.
Okay, I know, but it's okay.
It's okay. So, yes, they're laying into each other. Dean is getting so frustrated that he slaps his hand to a glass of water that's on the desk, and he moves it. He makes contact with this glass and breaks it on the floor.
Yeah, flies off the desk. Yeah. Both John and Sam are like, did you see that? But I have to say, in the moment before that happened, I totally get why Dean got so pissed, because he's yelling, stop it, because John is saying to Sam, we never should have brought you along. If it weren't for you, Sam wouldn't be, Dean wouldn't be laying in a hospital bed. John was like, this is all your fault. I never should have brought you along. I never should have trained you as a hunter. And that's why Dean was like, shut up. And that's when he smacks the glass.
That was really rough to hear. Like, it was rough, again, knowing what happens at the end and the reasons for it, like all of John's plan at the end, because I think that he has been cooking this up the whole time, but knowing like all these, his sons are just like attacking him for this and he's just not letting up. That's extra heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking the first time you watch it because this is just like a stressful moment and you want them to stop fighting.
What are you doing? Yeah.
Yes. And then this whole like, it was just rough watching John like blaming Sam that all of this happened. That was
he was basically saying you never should have been born is what he was saying. That's what it felt like. It's one of those moments of, we never should have had you. Everything was fine until you came along. I
didn't feel like it was that.
That's kind of how I felt. That he was saying like we never should have involved you in this, which is basically saying, you were never truly a part of this anyway. I didn't actually write that down. I just kind of fell into that just now when we're thinking about it. So, and as a side stupid note, what hospital uses glasses, not plastic cups? Side note, Valerie, it's a TV show. You need a glass to shatter for emphasis.
Yes.
Okay.
Because he full on Swayze that mother.
Yeah.
I understood that reference.
Yes. He was so proud of himself. Like he was shocked and proud at the same time. He's like, dude, like all things aside, did you see what I just did? I know Dad's yelling at us, but dude.
Yeah.
Like full on Swayze that. Loved that.
But then things take a turn for the worse because then he starts doing the supernatural ghost thing where he's glitching in and out. Sam and Dad hear some commotion down the hall, so Sam goes to leave and he sees Dean, I guess going into cardiac arrest or he's just failing. So they're doing the what is it? The defibrillator.
The defibrillator.
Yes, and then Ghost Dean is there also, like
there,
watching
and he sees this like thing. Floating over his body while this is all happening. That thing that he saw earlier whooshing down the hall is now floating over his body while they're trying to resuscitate him.
Yeah.
And he's like, stop it.
Yeah,
get away. Get away from me. Yeah. And he goes and he like tries to grab it and he's actually able to make contact with this ghosty thing. And the contact kind of blows Dean back a little bit. The ghosty thing whooshes away and suddenly Dean, the doctors are like, okay, we got a sinus rhythm. So the ghosty thing was waiting, I guess, for Dean to die. Dean was able to stop it, maybe.
Yeah.
And now the doctors, Dr. Debbie Downer is like, I guess he's okay. I guess we'll come back and check on him in a little bit later,
Yeah. Dean's still quite not sure what is going on. Sure, he thought that guy was killing him.
Right.
But there's a moment where Sam hears him or thinks he hears him. He yells
because
loud enough.
you see him turn his head like, who's saying stop it? Who's saying?
Yeah. And then here comes one of those cool shots that you were talking about where Dean is standing next to Sam and basically saying like, if I can touch it, then I can hunt it. And then the camera like does a 360, pulls away and Dean is gone. And Sam looks over his shoulder, kind of sensing
where
him.
Dean was. Yeah.
And nothing's there.
Yep.
That was a really cool shot.
But that's also like old school Dean. If I can touch it, I can kill it, or I can hunt it, whatever he says. I was like, and he's back into hunting mode. He is like down with the hunt. It's not about him being dead. It's about gotta hunt this thing.
Yeah.
Full on Dean. But then almost immediately Dean hears like a girl shouting down the hall. And I think she's saying things like, hello, why aren't you, can't you hear me? Why aren't you looking at me? And, kind of the same thing that Dean was doing, except she's a lot more panicked about it. Whereas Dean was like, what's going on?
Yeah. It's lucky that she has the other ghost person that finds her is a ghost hunter. So he's able to be like, listen, lady, this is what's going on. I know exactly what I'm doing.
Yep. I'm in the same boat you are. I can see you. You can see me.
Yes.
what we're having is an out-of-body experience.
Which means that we're spirits that are close to death.
Right. Right. I was like, man, Dean is like on top of it.
Yeah.
You know? So we leave Dean and other ghosty girl.
Tessa.
Tessa. Do we know her name? Okay.
Yes.
And back to now we see Sam and John again. And part of me wants to ask, because things have settled down, they're not fighting in this moment. And Sam is explaining to him, I think I heard him, you know, I think I actually, and part of me wants to say, why does Sam feel like he needs to explain himself to John? After that huge fight they just had, he's like still, now he's going back to John and saying, I think there might be something here.
Yeah.
You know,
I feel like it's because, you know, Sam just witnessed Dean like nearly on his deathbed. You know, that could have been the moment where he went. I think maybe that just kind of snapped out. You know, it's just like, you know what? We can fight later. You know, let's get back into Dean mode. You know, like saving Dean mode. But he does make Dad promise not to go hunting for the demon.
Yes.
Sam says, I got to go get something. Do not go hunting for this thing, please.
Yeah. Don't do anything till we know that Dean is okay.
Yes.
And it's like, and John says, okay, but Sam is like, you know, clearly he doesn't quite believe him, you know?
No.
So back to now Tessa and Dean, which, by the way, this hospital, the exact same hospital used all through season 1. I
totally wrote down early, like at the beginning when Dean is
coming down the
stairs. I was just like, those are Valerie's stairs.
Yes, indeed.
But they do. They mention in the commentary. They mention it later. Like, oh, this is Riverview Hospital. We did Asylum there. We did something else there. So
yeah, especially then there's a scene later. This is not a spoiler. What that happens in the boiler room. I was like, Asylum. That is the.
I don't think it's the same room.
No,
they said that was an empty room that they dressed up as the boiler room. They did say something about Asylum in that scene, but I believe they said something. Yeah, there was like another room for another show that we did that we had to dress up, and that was for Asylum.
Okay. But it sure felt like the same.
It might have been. I could be mistaken. But it was an empty room that they dressed up as the boiler room.
The boiler room. Okay. But it was the same building. It was the same building.
Yes, absolutely the same building.
Okay. So now Tessa and Dean are still chatting about what their circumstances are. And I feel like Tessa is like a lot more calm, like calmer than I would be, having just been told that I'm in basically limbo.
Yeah.
You know? And she's like, it's okay. You know, it's all right to let go. And,
it's like, if it is what it is, essentially. And Dean catches her on that too. She's like, wow, you're kind of like not as panicked as
I kind of call bullshit a normal
to
person
that. Would be. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then they're interrupted by another code that's called over the PA in the hospital. Somebody else is dying. Did you listen? Did you hear what the code was?
I did not catch it, but they did mention it on the commentary.
They mentioned it? Okay. I turned it up. And it's like, Dr. Kripke.
Yes.
To room 237, code blue. Dr. Kripke to room 237. Now, of course, everyone knows who Eric Kripke is at this point. Yep. Room 237 is another call out to The Shining in the movie, at least, not in the books, but in the movie.
They didn't mention that. They just said something about Dr. Kripke, but they didn't mention the number.
237 is a haunted room, basically, in The Shining. It's where terrible things happen. And so I kind of giggled at that because I was like, there's Kripke again. Yeah. And then I listened further and I was like, room 237, The Shining. So little call outs that I love. So both Tessa and Dean go running down the hall to room 237. Is Tessa there? I think no, it's not Tessa. It's just Dean.
He leaves her, because he's in the middle of just like, no, you always have, she's just like, no, it's fate. When it's your time to go, it's time to go. And he's like, no, wait, there's always a choice. And then he gets interrupted, leaves and goes sees the ghosty thing like floating above a little girl on the bed. He shouts at it again to get away from her. It disappears. But this time the girl does not make it, unlike Dean earlier.
Right. So the little girl dies and everyone's kind of bummed out. but one of the nurses or one of the attendings say, well, at least she's not suffering anymore.
Yeah.
And that kind of makes Dean, again, a micro expression of Dean. He's like, something else is going on here.
Yes. So then cut to Sam entering
yes.
entering Dean's room, saying, "Hey, I think you're around, and if you are, please do not make fun of me." But and pulls out of the brown paper bag that he's carrying
a Ouija board.
Well, it's a mystical talking board because he could not use
couldn't the trademark of Ouija.
But yes, it's a Ouija board.
Oh my God.
And Ghosteen is just like, are you kidding me?
But they both sit down on the floor like crisscross applesauce, with the Ouija board between them, and hands on the little device. And Sam starts asking questions.
Yes.
And Dean is able to answer.
Yeah. Have you ever done a Ouija board?
No. We had one in the house. My sister did it. My friends all did it. And here's the true story of why I will never touch a Ouija board.
Okay.
Religious family members of mine said to me at a very impressionable age that by doing the Ouija board, you are opening yourself up to the spirit world. And once you do that, they will always have a connection to you, whether you're using the Ouija board or not. And I was like, nope, I don't need to open myself up to potential spirits.
Yeah.
So that is why to this day, I've never touched a Ouija board. And you?
Yeah. Totally. Not when I was younger. I never really got the opportunity to use one, but in my first or second year of college, I had like a good group of friends, but one of them, we had this phase, I would say, where we did try the Ouija board. One of my friends bought one, brought it into the dorm room, and it was 5 or 6 times that we used it, within the span of a couple of weeks or so. Or maybe I'm not remembering it correctly, but definitely more than once. I don't know if I completely buy into the Ouija board, I believe in ghosts in the spirit world, but I don't believe that they would use a board game that one can buy at Toys R Us.
Brothers,
yeah, to communicate with you. It did though. The planchette did move. There were a few times that we did it where it moved really fast, to the letters and to the yes or the no.
And
or whatever.
How do you know that wasn't
right
someone in your group? That's the
See, that's the thing.
Now,
so.
Did you guys ever do, on that same note, did you ever play light as a feather, stiff as a board?
Yes, I did that a lot when I was younger.
I never got anybody to levitate, but I remember being oh, when was it going to happen?
Well, I don't think we ever, I feel maybe it did. Maybe we did. That one, I feel like there was more success in at least freaking me out.
Yeah.
Or there was also one where you could, I don't know if it had a name to it, but you pretended you were it's really morbid, cutting up each body part. You'd be we slice it open, we fill it with sand, we pack it in, and then we sew it up tight. And you did that with each limb, each appendage.
Oh, and then it turns out the person couldn't be able to raise their arms.
Yeah, or their body or whatever.
That sounds about right.
I was a macabre little kid, I guess. But now the Ouija board, I've done. I never took a lot of stock in it, even though there was one time and we did it in the same dorm room every time. So it wasn't we were taking it around to different places and experimenting. So there was 6 ghosts in this one dorm room, which does not seem likely. But there was one time where the ghost didn't like me. There was a time where it said it wanted me to get my hands off of the planchette.
Oh my gosh.
And
some
still,
serious shit happening in that dorm room.
I know. It's just oh, maybe these weren't really good friends of mine. Anyway, yes, that was my experience with a mystical talking board. But Kim and Cyrus, they actually were just obviously we couldn't use an actual Ouija board, so we had our props department, our graphics department completely remake this thing basically. And I don't know, they just gave a nice props to the props department as far as like
that's
nothing
cool.
gets taken for granted. And later when they talk about the journal, when it comes into play, they're like every single piece of paper that is in that journal and gets shown in each episode is like gone through an approval process, you know, and a design process. Every single little thing that gets shown on screen.
Yep.
Nothing gets taken for granted, and there's always a huge team effort behind it.
Which is
so
awesome.
I thought that was really nice of them.
That is nice, because not a lot of companies do, you know, shout out the little people, so to speak. The little people obviously aren't the little people.
So Sam's having a conversation with Dean. Like, he asks him a question, and Dean, skeptical as he is, puts his hand
he's like
on the planchette and is like, oh, hey,
I can do it.
Yeah.
And he's able to tell Sam that A, yes, he is hunting something, and B, it's a Reaper.
Yes, that's where like the reveal comes in as to what he's actually hunting. And also the Reaper is hunting him.
Right. But naturally. Isn't that what Sam says? Is that
it's not hunting him? Yeah, it's just like, is it after you?
It's coming for him. Yeah.
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 And this is another shot where you were talking about cowboy shot. I don't know if that was the name of it or not, but they did say like, because the camera does like this 360 all around Sam and Dean while they're having this Ouija board conversation, and Dean had to physically roll out of the way like whenever he was just supposed to be a ghost, and then like roll back in when
and be there. Yeah.
So it wasn't a spliced shot, you know, where they did the scene.
Yeah, it was a oneer. It was it was all one take.
So anyway, this new information like freaks Sam out. You know, it's just like, okay, gotta make a plan, and gotta make a plan fast.
Right.
Yeah, gets up, you know, it's like, I gotta tell Dad, we gotta figure out what to do. Goes to Dad's room. Dad is not there.
Yeah, bed is empty. And again, I question Sam. Why does he still have faith in John? He's been lied to, we think, you know, this entire time. And he's like, Dad don't have the answer. And he goes running off to Dad. And of course, once again, Dad lets him down by not being there.
Yeah. Again, I would say just an act of desperation. And, you know, it's just like, listen, we got to be united on this one thing. And that is to bring Dean back.
So we go from the empty bed that John isn't in to the basement where John is. And John finds his way into the boiler room, which is kind of this big empty open space.
A boiler / biohazard room.
Right. Once again, biohazard. But he like empties out this duffel bag of stuff that obviously that Bobby got him for the demon summoning. And he starts doing some like sigils and drawing on the floor. And he starts doing incantations.
So back upstairs, you know, Sam is back in Dean's bed, and it's just like, couldn't find Dad, but I found his journal, so I'm just gonna start studying.
Anything about Reapers in the journal.
Yes,
and they do flip 2 pages with Reaper information in it.
Yeah. And then, well, I just want to. Dean had like a really nice, touching moment where he was just like, "Thank you for not giving up on me, Sam."
Oh.
You know, he was just like,
oh, thanks for
after that, you know, spout that he had with Dad being like, you're not doing anything, you know, here he's seeing now Sam being active in something.
Yep. Not giving up. He's like, well, Dad's not going to help, but I found his journal. Maybe there's something in the journal.
Yes.
Let's try to help Dean.
Yes. So then he finds the page with Reapers, starts like reading up on it. Dean is looking over his shoulder, sees something that like,
we don't know.
The light on. Yeah. He's just like, God damn it, you know.
He should have just said son of a bitch, but he didn't. He could have said son of a bitch. And Dean goes running off.
Finds Tessa.
Yep.
Who looks different. You know, she's like dressed up, not in hospital scrubs anymore.
Right.
But in like a cute little black
outfit.
Also has a different demeanor. She's like way more calm and composed than she was even before. He's just like, so I just read something interesting that Reapers can look however they want to.
Yeah.
Say a really old man or a ghost or a really pretty girl.
Yes.
So here was a clever way to make a new rule over what Reapers look like, because as we remember the Reaper from the episode Faith in the first season, it was the oldest man that's ever existed.
Yeah, very crepey. Yeah. Now it's a pretty young girl.
Yeah, now it can be whatever you want it to be. So
Yep.
Movie
And
magic.
Dean confronts her. Yeah, he confronts her about being. He's like, look, listen to what I read about a Reaper.
Mm-hmm.
And Tessa's response is, "Death is nothing to fear." She's like, "You didn't like my first, appearance. Kind of hurt my feelings. So I decided to go like this to see if you would hear me." So Tessa's reason for being there clearly is just to try to convince Dean to let go.
Yes.
So,
she's not evil. She's not good. She's just is.
Yeah. Yeah. And just like the previous Reaper, not bad, just doing their job.
Just doing, So then we cut back to Dad, who has finished his sigil drawing. He's got things in a bowl. He's cutting his hand for blood.
And then he has that final, spark in a bowl,
Yeah.
And that's supposed to be like the end of the incantation, and he's supposed to summon the demon.
He's like prepped, like looking for things.
Nothing.
He's got nothing except a janitor. He's just like, "What are you doing down here, man? You're not supposed to be here. You gotta go."
Yeah.
John immediately pulls the gun on him.
Yeah.
He's like, "Think I'm that stupid?"
And this is the first time we see Yellow Eyes in his own body.
Yes. Or in the physical form that he presents himself as.
Yes,
for
in
a
while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in a man's body, like, because he's always been in, like, we've only seen him in like John's body. We've only seen the eyes.
Oh,
we've
true.
Never actually, we've never actually seen him, like, I mean, we've seen him as a shadow, in the bedroom, in the baby's rooms and stuff. But we've never seen him full body with the yellow eyes. And John, of course, is not fooled, by the janitor.
And then he's got two like lackeys coming up behind him, so letting John know, I got you surrounded.
Yeah.
You got one bullet left. I know that.
Yep.
So I love this guy, this actor.
What's his name? Frederick Lane?
Something.
Frederick Lane. I think it's like
Frederick Lane.
He sometimes goes by Lane too.
Yes. There's two names here in Umdb. No, I love him, and whenever I see him in something else, I'm just like, "Oh, it's Yellow Eyes."
Well, what's funny is that when I saw that he was on Lost, I never watched. I watched like 2 episodes of Lost, and then I just couldn't get into it. But I know you watched it, because I remember when we were in Hawaii, you were like, "Oh, this is where the smoke monster would be,"
yes,
in like the bamboo forest or something like that. And so now when I saw that he was on Lost, I was like, "Oh, is he like a smoke monster? Was he?" I immediately thought of you. I was like, "This is Sammy's actor." So
I do. I love him. But I do always refer to him as Yellow Eyes.
As Yellow Eyes.
Because that's like the thing that I've seen him in the most. And he was, I recently saw The Greatest Showman, and he's in that as well for a small role. And I was like, Yellow Eyes.
But as it turns out, John wants to make a deal.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't want to just, because he could have just killed Yellow Eyes right there.
Right.
He had him.
Right.
But he doesn't, because he wants to make a deal.
A deal, which intrigues old Yellow Eyes.
Yes.
So this guy, when he had his contacts in, completely blind.
Oh, that explains a lot. In something I'll say later. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So they had to put like a really bright light on the camera, if he needed to like look somewhere, just so he could see it. And they also put sandbags all over the floor. So like if he had to, so he would walk, so if he had to walk towards somebody,
he could.
And just if he hit the sandbag, then, it's gotta stop here. Completely blind.
Wow.
Which I thought was amazing. He did really, really good for being blind and not being able to see.
Right.
Again, couldn't react to anybody.
Yeah, he wasn't acting like he was blind. He was still full on acting,
Yeah.
One of our in a show we did at City Opera, one of the characters was supposed to have he was supposed to be blind with cataracts. And so we gave him, he wanted smoky eyes contacts and he could like
that was
barely see.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, he's gonna die. He's gonna just wander off the edge of the stage. And but he did it. He did those shows with those smoky contacts and couldn't see the conductor. Couldn't. I mean, so when he was bumbling around on stage, he was bumbling around on stage, but he made it work. It was so impressive.
So we cut from Dad being like, "I want to make a deal," and Yellow Eyes being like, "Oh, interesting," to Sam back in Dean's room. and he's so crushed because he couldn't find anything in the journal.
Yeah. Yep.
And he has to sit here and tell Dean, assuming that Ghost Dean is in the room.
Right.
Couldn't find anything here, but I'm going to keep trying. As long as you keep fighting, you have to keep fighting. And here's he just breaks down. We just became brothers. Please do not give up on me yet.
Yep.
And this shot was heartbreaking where he says, "Can you hear me?" And the camera pulls away and it's just an empty room. I mean, it's obviously Sam and obviously Coma Dean in the bed.
Right.
But nobody else is there.
Nope. But he tries to break it with a little bit of humor. He tries to say, you can't leave me here alone because Dad and I will kill each other.
Yeah.
And there's truth to that, though. There's a little bit of truth. He's bottom line is, if Dean's gone, then we're not a family.
Yeah.
And it's, it was this whole episode had these moments of truth, of vulnerability and truth about these strong male characters. And it was just, it was touching. It was heartrending without it being weeping, it was it was a sad moment and touching.
Although Kim did say that during this scene he was crying, when he was shooting it, and he was I kept messing up the scene because I would be crying.
Oh gosh! But next, since Dean hasn't been in the room with Sam, we find out where he is. He's back with Tessa.
Yeah,
he's back trying to fight, bargain.
All the stages of grief that she was describing,
or death, or just the stages of death,
maybe.
And
or denial, I don't know, but
denial, bargaining.
Yes.
Yeah. And but for Dean, he's saying, I have to live, you have to help me. And he's not talking about for himself. He's I have to save my family. My family is going to die.
Yeah.
So he's not thinking about himself. He doesn't want to live for himself. He wants to live to save his family.
Yes. Listen, the battle's going to go on with or without you.
Yep.
It doesn't stop when you die. So other people will be there to fill in, and again, she's not being mean about it. She's just telling it how it is.
Yeah.
And just trying to convince him to go with her. Because when he says, "Fine, I just won't go with you," she says, "Okay, you are right in that you have a choice, but you're not getting back in your body, and that's just a fact.
Yeah.
And you will live here empty, bodiless for years and years and years, and eventually become so filled with rage that you will become exactly what you've been hunting your whole life."
She's what do you think makes angry spirits?
Yeah.
And it's that refusal to move on. And anger about not being able to move on, let go, and that struggle.
And I think that's what hits Dean. Yeah, that's the thing that catches Dean, and he's just oh.
Yeah, he sees it. He absolutely sees it. And so now we're back in the basement with John and Yellow Eyes. And John says, "Can you bring Dean back?" And Yellow Eyes says, "No, but I know someone who can."
Yeah.
So now the bargaining starts.
Yes.
And the bargain is for what we think is the cult. Yellow Eyes wants the cult.
Which that's a shocking thing. This whole time, this whole episode, this whole season 1, once John and the cult enter this picture, is he's obsessed and possessed by this gun. He's just nope, this is my treasure. This is my
revenge.
My precious,
Yes, my precious.
He's I am not letting go of this gun no matter what it takes. And immediately, John in this trade is just take the Colt, take the bullet. This is what you really want.
Yep.
Which, I don't know, that was just...
Something is going on here. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was also just, it was nice to know that John was not so obsessive over hunting this demon as, we were led to believe, and his sons are led to believe.
But Yellow Eyes is I'll take the Colt, but that's not all.
Yeah, you got to sweeten the pot.
Yeah, I want something else. And that's when John is taken aback a little bit.
I don't think he was taken aback.
Really?
Honestly.
I think he was, I think he was hoping.
I think he was hoping
to just get away with.
But I think he knew all along what it was going to come down to, and he was willing to give it.
To do it, yeah.
But anyway, we're left on this kind of little mini cliffhanger, so to speak, with them.
And then it cuts back to Dean and Tessa, still kind of talking about You know,
Yes,
what are you going to do, Dean?
She's getting closer and closer to convincing him
Yep.
to come with her.
And then
the lights start flickering on and off.
Yeah, exactly. Which we all know means something supernatural is happening. And Dean's like, what are you doing? And Tessa looks around. She's like, that's not me.
Yeah.
And then we see black smoke start pooling in through one of the vents in the hospital room. And it starts like running towards her. And she's like, no, you can't do this.
Yeah.
You can't do this. But the black smoke just wham, hits her in the face and jams down her throat. And she's now possessed by yellow eyes.
Yeah, because she turns her head towards Dean, opens her eyes, they're yellow, and says, today's your lucky day, kid, and puts her hand on his face. And then bright light and noises and screaming. And so this was funny because the actress who played Tessa was also blind when she had these contacts in.
That's what I was going to say, because all the outtakes have her like putting her hand in the wrong spot, and Dean had to keep moving her hand to put it on his head. And it was like over and over. And she's like, oh, come on. And she just didn't know. She didn't know where he was in order to put her hand on his head. Yes.
Yes. They laughed about that. They were just like, it was on my shoulder. It was like 5 inches away from my nose.
In front of the camera. Yes. And what's funny is that when you watch those outtakes without context, you just think that she's stupid. That she doesn't know where to put her hands. And he's like, oh, it's over here. But knowing that she truly couldn't see, and he was just like, no, it's over here. Makes it different, you know? Oh, I felt so bad for her once I realized what that was. Because I was like, why, how does she not know where the camera is and that she's putting her hand in front of her face, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
But so she like does a heel type of thing on his forehead. And, bright light. And next thing we see is Dean waking up in his bed. So Dean's body wakes up.
Yes, like coughing, because he's got all these tubes and stuff in his body.
Yep. But he's all healed. The doctors are like, oh, perfect sinus rhythm. Hey, they don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. And Dean does not remember anything that has happened when he was in his out-of-body experience. Does not remember talking to the Reaper, does not remember anything, because Sam is just like, remember when we talked on the Ouija board? And he's just like, I have no idea what you're talking about, So
and that's when John walks in, and John looks, I don't want to say deflated, but he kind of looks resigned. But almost like there's been a weight lifted off his shoulders at the same time. Yeah. It's kind of like, I don't know how to describe it. It's just, he didn't look sad. He didn't look angry. He didn't look morose. He just looked resigned.
Right.
And like, okay, now I've got to go do the next thing.
Yes.
I don't know. It's hard to explain.
It is hard to explain.
The subtlety of his acting is like, I still got it though. It's like, as soon as he walked into the room, I'm like, I feel it. Yeah. But I can't put my finger on what I felt for him.
Right. So he shows up, he's making sure that Dean is okay. Sam again wants to fight because in Sam's point of view, where have you been? Like fighting this demon like you promised you wouldn't. And Dad is just pleading with him. Please, let's just not fight right now.
Let's just be.
He makes a quasi confession. He's just like, listen, I know I've not been the best dad. I've made some mistakes. And I'm so sorry, but right now I just don't want to fight.
Yep.
Sam does. He backs off. He doesn't take the bait.
Right.
And, he's like, are you okay? And he says, yeah, I'm just tired. Would you mind getting me a cup of coffee?
Yep.
And then has this moment with Dean, again, with a quasi confession saying, I'm sorry, like you shouldn't have had to been the one to comfort me when I came home from a fight. Yep. I should have been comforting you. Like that's
right. I never should have exposed you to that or put that burden on you as a child. Yeah. And
I cried.
Dean
I cried every single time that I watched this episode.
Well, because even in those moments, Dean is like, why are you saying this stuff? You're scaring me. Because I mean, he always has been the strong kid, So why is my dad, who's supposed to be the strong guy, telling me all this stuff?
Yes, and again, getting emotional too.
Yes, and crying. I mean, not like whoa, crying, but like just tears. Tears that leak out. And in that moment, John leans over and puts his head next to Dean's puts his mouth next to Dean's ear and whispers something.
Yes, because right before that, he's just like, I need you to watch out for Sammy, okay?
Right. And Dean's like, of course I will. I always do.
Yeah. And then leans into the whisper. We don't hear what he says to Dean.
Right. Yeah. It's not just like pss, pss, and done.
Yeah.
It's like it's an extended, passage that he's whispering.
Right. And we see Dean's expression, which is just, I don't know, that one was a hard one to describe. He was just like, are you kidding? Are you serious?
Yeah. I was like, he was dumbfounded. He wasn't like, huh? But he was just like,
he was like taken aback, like, holy cow.
What did you just tell me? And then John leaves and just leaves Dean there in bed going, what?
Yeah.
What's happening? He goes into another room, which I'm assuming was his old room, John's old hospital room. He puts the Colt on the hospital table and says, okay, we don't know who he's talking to. I mean, we obviously do, but he just sets it down. He's like, okay. Yeah. And Sam comes back into the room with the coffee, or comes back down the hall with the coffee, and happens to look down and see John on the floor, just like on his back on the floor, drops the coffee, Dad, and clearly can't, John isn't responding. Sam is yelling for help.
Yeah. This is all in slow motion. The music, that damn music. It's like that sad music that is never a good sign. They did say that the coffee, the cup, like when it lands, and it stays straight up.
Yeah.
They said that was only like the third shot that happened. It was like total luck. They weren't meaning for it to happen.
To do it,
yeah. But it just.
But they're like, that's the shot we're gonna use.
It's like, yes. Yeah. One of those things to break the tension of this like really sad moment.
I read in a review that one of the person who was reviewing it was like, it was perfect the way that cup landed, because it was like, the cup is now half full as opposed to half empty. I was like, oh, shut up. It was just a dropped cup of coffee, It was
total happy accident that it landed.
Yes.
It happened that way.
Exactly. And the next thing we see, are the doctors again, and the doctors who did come in that we didn't see come in. The next clip we see is doctors working on John, and then them saying,
Sam and Dean like watching from the doorway, just like in anticipation, like, oh no.
Yeah. And the doctors are like, they stop compressions. That's it. And John dies as Sam and Dean look on.
Yep. Like in the credits, they say time of death, 10:41 a.m.
Yep.
And that's it.
That's the end of the episode. and I was like, what? Wait. Oh, because I thought I had such mixed emotions about John through this whole thing. And you're supposed to, he's a dick. Yeah. He's not. He's a dick. He's not. Yeah. And he was riding right on this cusp of such dickishness until the moment where Yellow Eyes says you have to sweeten the pot. That's when it changed for me. I mean, I knew it was leading up to something, but that's where it changed for me. And I was heartbroken. That the boys had also come to an arc of, this is now we love our dad. Now we, we're back. We're all together again. We're going to go and get this demon. And they were in this moment of love, of a loving family. Yeah. And to see their dad die on the floor, not killed by a demon, not killed in battle while hunting, just dead on the hospital floor.
They have no idea what happened at this point. They're just like, what? Now you were fine. See, I kind of thought that throughout this whole thing that John knew what he was going to end up doing. Of course, not the first time that I ever saw this. That came as a total shock to me that they decided to kill off John. In the first episode of the season.
Like, we just got to know him.
I know, but in rewatching it and like knowing what happened and getting a chance to really look at John's micro expressions, to me that said, I think that he knows what he has to do.
Going back and watching it the second time, you could see the resignation on his face, and that the things he was saying to distance the boys from him because of the things he had to do. Doesn't mean he was right in doing it. Because again, if you go back to previous episodes, it's like Sam's just like, why don't you just tell us what's going on? So his intentions are correct. His process isn't always the best for Dean and Sam. And it just breaks their hearts like over and over and over again, because they love him so much. You know, one in a worshiping way, one in a, you know, I miss time with you, so I want to, you know, make up for lost time in our lives, and you know, recognize me for the individual person that I am. And I didn't cry then. I cried when all three of them were in their moments together on screen. In those moments, I was like, that's when I would tear up, and not weeping, but I was just like, the micro expressions that each of these performers gave were so telling. There was no questioning what those characters were feeling in those moments. And it didn't hurt that, like, Kim Manners with his directing, he did a lot of like funky camera shots, not just the, you know,
the 360 things,
not just the 360s and, you know, the imagery with Dean, but just like, even like when Dean was first getting out of bed and coming down the stairs, the camera's all like crazy and turny, so you felt a little dizzy, so you knew that things weren't quite right anyway, just because you in the world of watching Dean was all off kilter. And he did that throughout, and I thought that was really interesting.
I also really loved, again, the choice of killing off their main motivation. It was Dad in first season, like, we got to go find Dad, period. Even when they found Dad, you know, somehow they were still like looking, and they lost Dad.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and I do remember like reading a little interview about it, and when I was researching something else, but they kind of did resign themselves to the fact that we have to get rid of him in order for the boys to move forward with things. He's now kind of an obstruction in their journey. But I think they made that decision kind of early on in the first season, so it wasn't like a surprise to Jeffrey Dean Morgan, you know, that he wasn't going to be on.
I guess I'll move on to The Walking Dead now.
Right? Yeah, no kidding. Oh my god. But no, like the choice to kill him in the season opener and not in the season finale was like interesting. You know, it's just like, oh my god. You know, like, that's yet another cliffhanger.
It's so cool though, because they introduce Yellow Eyes, we see him, and now he's a character, and John goes away, you know. So there's this introduction of something new, and the, you know, destruction of a loved character, a love-hated character. Well done. I mean, if you weren't a fan of Supernatural before, this as a standalone episode was still really compelling.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's going to wrap it up for season 2, episode 1. Our first episode back in many weeks.
Sorry.
It was like 3 hours long.
I missed you, Sammy. I had to talk to you.
I know, I missed you too. I hope everyone else missed us as much as we missed each other. So anyway, I hope that you enjoy this. I hope that you subscribe and follow us on all of the things. On Twitter, we are at Salt and Burn This. On Facebook and Instagram, we are at Salt and Burn This Pod. Interact with us. We post some fun things sometimes.
Most
all the time. Most times, at least every day. And yeah, leave us a rating. Please share us with friends and family that would like the show, or at least would like us. That would be nice. And we will see you next week for Everybody Loves a Clown.
Oh no, I hate clowns.
I don't mind clowns, but I do not remember this episode at all.
Oh, anything with clown has got to be bad. It's just gonna haunt me. Okay. Great.
Right. Thanks everyone. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.